Hello everyone, this is Osiris Frost. Today I want to talk to you about the danger of expectations. Star Citizen is a game which is still in the alpha phase of its development. This fact is frequently lost on many people, including, sometimes, yours truly. In the past month, it seems like the general mood throughout the community has had an extra strong, the sky is falling vibe over several topics. So let me ascend my soapbox and do what I can to put out some fires. I'll begin by addressing some recent accusations of CIG trying to sneak in a profession progression into Star Citizen. As you know, there are no levels or skills in Star Citizen, so progression in the normal sense as applies to other MMOs is not a thing here. However, with the release of the RSI Apollo medical ship, CIG has apparently nerfed the capabilities of the already concepted Cutlass Red, leading many in the community to claim that CIG diminished the Cutlass, specifically to create a space in the medical ship lineup between it and the Endeavor Hope, thereby necessitating a gradual transition from the starter profession ship on upwards in order for players to fully realize the entire range of their chosen profession's gameplay. This may be true, but remember that, as Star Citizen is still an alpha, much of what ships are or will be is subject to change. I totally understand backers being bummed out that a ship they pledged for years ago gets a sudden drop in value, seemingly just to give CIG the operating space to hold a concept sale for a very similar ship. I would have rather they kept the Cutlass as it was, and allowed the improved armor and modularity of the Apollo to set it apart from its competition. After all, it's very often in real life that competitors in, say, the automotive sector make very similar products to one another, and the difference in whether you buy one manufacturer's product or another may come down to a specific feature that one has but not the other. And whether they do ultimately change the Cutlass or not, you do have some options here. You can CCU your Cutlass Red to an Apollo for $105. If that's not an option that you're into, you could melt your Cutlass, or CCU it to some other ship that interests you, and later on get an Apollo in-game. You can also always take to Spectrum and construct a well-reasoned thread explaining why you're not happy with the situation and suggest a better resolution to what CIG has handed down to the community. And while I'm on the subject of medical ships, a second related panic went up around the same time as the progression outrage. There has been no shortage of hand-wringing on Spectrum over CIG's failure to address the place of the Carrack and Polaris in the medical ship lineup. Somehow, it was simultaneously decided by panicky backers that because the Cutlass nerf was openly discussed in relation to the Apollo, that the non-mention of the larger ships with a medical bay just obviously means that CIG are being tight-lipped about those ships being nerfed as well. No. Just no. Ships like the Carrack, Polaris, Idris, and Javelin are not now, nor have they ever been, medical ships. They are ships expressly built for other purposes, which just so happen to include a medical bay to support their primary purpose. So please, let's keep the conspiracy theorizing to a minimum here. Your Carrack didn't lose its medical bay. It simply wasn't discussed in the spectrum of medical ships because it is not a medical ship. It's an exploration ship that can put band-aids on its crew when they're light years away from the nearest medical facility. Switching gears to a more recent outrage, in this past week's episode of Calling All Devs, Todd Pappy discussed an internal developer build that included 8 truck stops between Crusader and Hurston. This followed on the heels of CIG's refueling design doc released back in April of this year, in which a cherry-picked sentence seemed to indicate that the importance of refueling ships would be greatly reduced from the way in which they were originally envisioned. Many backers read too much into that document, and, naturally, Monday's episode didn't even finish before the outrage commenced. People were hysterical that CIG were going to have us all stopping to refuel every 15 minutes, unless we had Idris-sized fuel tanks. And it's obvious to me that this panic arose before the episode concluded, because Todd Pappy was emphatic that CIG was well aware that 8 fuel stops between 2 planets in the same system was already too many, and before that gameplay would even get released to the public, it was likely to be revised down. Seriously, he and Jared repeated that point several times, that these are all subject to change pending backer testing and feedback, and specifically pointed out that they understand having to be refueled too often was extremely not fun. So within a few months, you have the community oscillating from concern that we won't need to refuel often enough to thinking that we'll need to do it too often. With refueling, just like every other mechanic in Star Citizen, it is necessary to find the optimal balance between realism and fun. Bear in mind also that when you drive down the road in real life, you may pass several gas stations before you need to stop at one and fuel up. Having X number of stations along a route simply gives you options, and also the flexibility to not need to depart from the surface of a planet with a full tank of fuel every time. Now, you may be thinking, that's plenty of scandals for 1-2 week period of a game still in alpha, but we ain't finished yet. Late this week, CIG, quote-unquote accidentally published a roadmap update which added patch 3.2 and juggled a whole bunch of features around. They were very quick to issue an official statement to say that this was not a final official update, and to their credit, they left the accidental publish in place so that everyone could see what all the fuss was about. No doubt had they taken it down, they would be dealing with a whole different set of accusations at this very moment. But backers, unconvinced of the potential inaccuracy of this update, were quick to decry all the features that were pushed back from where they were most recently understood to be scheduled. In some cases, as with refueling and salvage, there were apparently features being pushed back multiple patches. Official statements aside, let's assume that this leaked patch is 100% accurate. From where I sit, what hasn't changed is of vastly more importance than what has. The number one thing holding Star Citizen back on July 28, 2018 is the inclusion of network bind culling and object container streaming. Those features both still appear on track for release in 3.3 this September. Adding that core tech to the game will enable the growth of the game universe, and allow CIG to add new planets, moons, and systems in future patches. We need this to move the game forward. We don't need a new ship, or FPS weapon, or clothing set. Not to put too fine a point on it, but if the only things that make it into patch 3.3 are object container streaming, network bind culling, and Hurston and its moons, I will be completely satisfied. To wrap things up, I just want to reassure everyone that the sky is not falling. CIG are very aware of backer opinions relative to refueling and changes to concepted ships. Despite this, they may sometimes make changes that some people do not like. My advice is to try to roll with the punches as development proceeds. There's still plenty of time for things to be iterated on and improved where possible. Before I leave you today, I wanted to mention a couple of things. First, CIG have surpassed the $191 million mark in funding. They are closing in on the $200 million mark here pretty quickly, and will more than likely hit that number sometime later this year, probably between 3.3 and 3.4 is my guess. I think their crowdfunding efforts are being helped this year by the extended concept sales that they've been doing. I'm looking forward to seeing what ships they come out with next, and also what rewards they come up with for hitting $200 million. Lastly, yesterday they released 2 updated exploration ship packs. I'll post links to those in the show notes. I like them because they are game packages at a single price point, purchasable with store credit, and they come with LTI. I'm not yet sold on the need to own that many exploration ships. It's still fairly early, and it isn't entirely clear why you might want to own one versus a similar one, say like a 315P or a Freelancer DUR. But for the reasons I've mentioned, these packs are good options to consolidate your fleet into an LTI game package, and you can just CCU anything you're not interested in. Anyways, that's all for today. I've been Osiris Frost. Thanks for watching. That's all for today's show. Thanks for watching. If you're new to Star Citizen, or you know someone who's thinking of playing, you or they can earn 5,000 UEC on your account by registering with my referral code, which you can find in the show notes down below. If you have any questions, feedback, or episode suggestions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. And if you haven't already, please be sure to like and subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. Thanks, and I'll see you next time.